Hello, and welcome to another episode. Recently, I watched a TED Talk called The Art of Being Yourself by Carolyn McHugh, and it reminded me of an experience I had a few years ago and the lessons I learned from it. So I thought it would be nice if I shared that with you today. 5 years ago, I was made a leader of a group, and in that group, I was technically the youngest person, or at least almost the youngest person. And what happened is that soon after I was appointed a leader, I just became consumed with thoughts of what exactly I can do to fit into this position. So I was constantly questioning myself, feeling inadequate for the role. And because for the most part I was learning on the job, I constantly felt like I didn't know enough, which was advantageous to some extent because I remember at that point I studied so much on leadership. Within a short time, I learned so much. But I got to this moment where I just felt like nothing I did would ever make me suitable for the role. And I felt like maybe I needed to change myself, my core personality. And I just was on this track for some time, consumed with those sorts of thoughts. But I got to this point, and I truly believe that God helped me get to that point where I just realized all of a sudden that I was chosen for this role because I'm me. So the reason why, I was appointed the leader and not someone else is because whoever made that decision thought there were qualities that I had that would help me to serve in this role. And that realization just set me free because all the time I've been trying to become someone else because of maybe people's preferences or their opinions, and I was just struggling to be myself. And it's not a question of morality or ethics, it's just a matter of when it comes to deciding the pattern in which things should go, I would always try to do things the way people generally found acceptable. And there were so many things I wanted to do, I thought would be interesting to try out, but I just didn't do them because I felt they would backfire or maybe people would just not agree with them. So after that moment, when I realized that, I just became so relaxed compared to who I was before, and those around me could see it. I used to look like I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders. So if I'm walking on the corridor, people are like, "What's going on? Are you okay? Is everything fine?" But afterwards, I think the change was visible to most people around me. And that change came with realizing that who I am is enough. And it's the same thing that I feel you should realize. It's not really something that happens at once, but it's a constant iteration towards the person you're supposed to be, towards should I say the person you should be, or the person you already are inside, but you're not showing. So it's okay to want to improve general qualities. Maybe if you're a leader somewhere or you're working in a role, you should definitely improve your skills. But I'm talking about living in such a way that you express those parts of you that need to be expressed, and allow them to show in what you're doing. Don't just become a copycat of some sort of standard procedure that's expected from everyone, but allow who you are to reflect in the work that you do. And I know it's not always easy to do, especially when you're laden with a backload of criticism. So if you're in a position that has a lot of shareholders, stakeholders, and there are a lot of people really concerned about how you do what you do, it gets increasingly difficult. It's different from when you're in full control of the outcome of whatever actions you take. But like I said before, it's a process. It's not a final destination, but it's just a constant attitude, a state of mind where you know that you are working in this role. I mean, I'm not specifically referring to jobs now. I mean, you're doing something and you are trying to express yourself with that thing. You're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, if you get what I mean. So if I were to define this more clearly, I would call this the process of becoming you. So it's the art of, or the process of making decisions, constantly making the decisions or doing the things, trying out the things that most truly represent you, and not simply going along with what people want. Because In the world today, it's very easy to just go along with what people want. You feel like you're expected to act a certain way and do things a certain way. But there's this quote which for some reason I cannot find, like whose original author I can't find for some reason. I probably read it in a book somewhere, or maybe it was just a one-liner from someone famous. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but what I got from it is that the world responds to people who are not afraid to be themselves. I think one thing that Carolyn McHugh said that really got to me is she said, if you try to find the similarity between a lot of great people, what is it that they do, especially what is the core thing about them, what talent is common amongst all of them, it's like you find nothing. Or you find some connection between some of them, but I mean, for the most part, there's hardly any correlation. Most of these people have varying personalities, varying motivations in life, varying skills, but they stand out because they've somehow managed to be unique in a world that compels most people to be the same. So in light of that, you might be thinking, what is the process that I have to undertake to become me? How can I start doing that today? And so there are three really short things that I would like to highlight. And the first is be clear on what you want from life. This is the most important. I mean, there are three things, like I said, but this is the first, and you have to get it right. Of course, you might not be clear on everything from day one. And when I say be clear on what you want from life, I do not mean that you have to have everything figured out at once. But it's like the whole process is more of an attitude than just a one-day final destination. So constantly being true to yourself and what you want from life. And it's astounding how many people just, lie to themselves. I'm one of those people who very often has just not been true to myself. Because when we're young, there are things we had in mind to do. There are things we dreamt of. And I'm not saying you should walk around living a child's fantasy. But that freedom of imagination where you didn't just limit yourself the moment a thought came out, you didn't just push it back in a box like, okay, that's not doable, let's just forget about that, that's not within the scope of what is considered normal these days. You didn't do that. You just let those thoughts run free, and sometimes you even experimented on them. But I guess as time goes on, we just learn to cancel out thoughts immediately, which is a useful trait to some extent. I mean, you can't really chase after every thought that comes to mind. You go crazy. But I think to some extent, we tell ourselves that we don't really want something when we really want it. And you do this to the point that even to you, it becomes real. So maybe because you do not want to feel disappointed with life, you tell yourself, I don't really want to get so good at this, or I don't really want to get to this level of financial stability. I probably do not need it. And that's so that you do not get disappointed. This is not an argument against contentment. It's great to be content, but it's a different thing when you're settling. When you know that there's a lot more that you want out of life, and there's a lot more that you believe you can do. There's a lot more you believe that you can give to those around you. There's a lot more of yourself you believe can be used to impact the world, but you just do not do that because you feel maybe you're worried about the risks. You're worried about what people will say. And because of that, you convince yourself that you do not really need to take that step. You don't really need to do this at this point in time. It's one thing when you pretend and lie to others, although that's a bad enough thing on its own, but it's an absolute catastrophe when you lie to yourself and when you do it so much that you actually start to believe it. Because at that point, there's almost nothing anyone can do, because the moment you believe that this is who you are and that this is what you truly want when it isn't, then you're stuck at that point. So like I said, just be clear to yourself on what you truly want from life. And then the next thing you want to do is to stop comparing yourself to others. I know that social media has made this increasingly difficult today. So if you just turn on your phone and go to any social media app, you are immediately bombarded with images of people who are successful, who are exploring the world, who are doing these amazing things, who have perfect faces, perfect smiles, perfect relationships, whatever it is. And it's almost inevitable to compare yourself to them in some way, even if you are you're the kind of person who knows this already, that yeah, I should not compare myself to others. But if you are constantly bombarded with such images, they become your point of reference, because you think this is how people should live their lives, this is what people should be doing with their time, and it's one exciting moment after another. That really is a road to confusion, with who you are and what you should be doing. It's always best to make sure that you're tracking your progress based on where you are in terms of becoming the person you want to become, and this is why number one is extremely important. So if you have not been clear with yourself, if you have not told yourself the truth about who you want to be, where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to be with, all these things, then it's very difficult for you to have a frame of reference to track your progress. Maybe because at every point in time, once the world, by that I mean so from social media, or maybe people around you, once there's a new framework for what is the norm, you begin to sort of shift your expectations of yourself. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be here at this point, maybe I should be there, and it's not like I'm against human interaction, because you need to have human interaction and you need to get feedback from people on what you should be doing. Not really on what you should be doing, well, sort of, but mostly you need that feedback from people, because you get encouragement. When you see someone doing something, it's nice. Sometimes it makes you believe in yourself more, that okay, if someone can do that, maybe I can do that too, as long as it is within the framework of the person you truly want to be. Because there's so many things you can be in life. If you're constantly trying to compare yourself with people, you're going to be pulled in a million different directions, because today you see someone doing this and it looks cool, and you think, yeah, I should probably do that, or maybe I can explore that a little bit. Especially if you're the kind of person who's multi-talented and just picks things up easily, you're going to be pulled in 1 million, well, 10,000, 1 million, it's a lot of directions. But you're going to be pulled in a lot of directions, and you're going to be so confused about life. So if you have to compare yourself to anything, it should be the frame of reference that is based on who you want to become. And number 3 is act. I think this is where a lot of people have problems with everything I mentioned, but I think this stage is especially difficult after getting past the other two, because it's easy to talk about things, talk about who you want to be and draft out a plan, share it with people even. And when you're talking with people about who you want to be, what you want to do, it's a source of dopamine release. And so you get this rush of excitement that is akin to the one you would get if you actually did that task or completed it. So it's getting a reward without actually doing anything. And what happens is you spend so much energy talking and strategizing, and you're left with basically no energy to act out on what you said you want to do. So don't fall into that trap. Try to get going. And well, I fall into that trap a lot, which is why I'm sharing it with you. And I mean, till today, I've done it in the past, and it happens ever so often. So I have to constantly remind myself to get up and move, and not just spend time talking about what I want to do or strategizing, because it's fun, to have 1,001 ideas and to share that. It's an exciting process. When you're just talking about something you're really passionate about, you, like I said, have this rush of dopamine, and that can be misleading. So by talking, you have actually done nothing. And that's a step in the process, but you've really done nothing. It doesn't change the world. It doesn't change where you are today or where you will be tomorrow. So Get up and begin to work towards the person you want to be. It's not always an easy process, and there's a lot that you're going to learn along the way. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, but get moving. I think that's the most important thing. Do those things that represent who you are, and don't be afraid to try new things just because they don't conform to the general narrative around you. Like I said in the beginning, the world responds to those people who are not afraid to be themselves. We have too many of the same people going around, similar faces, similar skills, similar interests, similar attitudes to everything. And it's nice when you show the world a unique face. So I wish you all the best in everything that you've set your heart to do. I hope that you can learn how to truly become you. Better yet, I hope that you can master the process of becoming you. Once again, all the best and have a wonderful week ahead. Love you. Bye.